It's the start of the 2025 hurricane season. The First Warn 5 weather team wants you to be ready for anything that comes our way. Here's what we're cooking up this year.
All right, look at that, Tim.
Looks amazing.
No power, ladies and gentlemen.
You heard that right. We made those tacos without any electricity. I head to the kitchen to show you how to make that meal step by step. What you can buy now to prepare that meal if the power goes out. And speaking of shopping,
when a hurricane hits, it could be weeks before you're able to refill your prescription medication.
meteorologist Andrew Chung takes a shopping trip to show you what supplies you can stock up on ahead of the storm. And from the stores to the skies.
That's when basically the U.S. discovered that they can actually fly airplanes through tropical systems.
We talked to the hurricane hunters. Meteorologist Cecilia Gutierrez finds out how they get the data we need to keep you safe. And if a storm does come our way, do you know your evacuation routes?
Well, it's important to know the evacuation routes now ahead of hurricane season.
Meteorologist Brianna Medina drives through the routes you need to know. One of the most dangerous places to be during a storm is on the coast. Using new technology, meteorologist Sergio Puente walks us through what a storm surge could look like on our doorstep. Thank you for being with us. I'm First Warn 5 Chief Meteorologist Tim Smith. If you've ever wondered what that meant, First Warn, it means we are here to warn you first about a storm. Hurricanes are an inevitable part of life for those of us who live near the coast. They've happened before, and they will most definitely happen again. We will all at some point have a hurricane story to tell, and the more prepared we are, the better our hurricane story will end. So let's start with this. Scientists at Colorado State University say it's going to be another above average year with 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major, that's category 3 or stronger, hurricanes. That's slightly above average on all counts. Of course, they don't say where the storms are going or when they'll get there. It's been 5 years since Hurricane Hannah battered the valley. Peak winds with the storm were over 80 miles per hour. As far inland as McAllen, winds gusted to over 60 miles per hour. Buildings were damaged, trees were down, and of course, the power was out. And the rain, it just kept coming. 14 to 16 inches of rain across the heart of the valley. Flooding was widespread and devastating. And Hannah was a Category 1 storm. 17 years ago in 2008, Hurricane Dolly brought a large storm surge to the bay side of South Padre Island. The winds were near 100 miles an hour, and again, 14 to 16 inches of rain. 250,000 people lost power. Flooding lasted for weeks. Total damage estimated at over $2 billion. Other storms, Hurricane Brett in 1999, Hurricane Gilbert in 1988, Allen in 1980, and of course Hurricane Beulah in 1967. All of these storms changed people's lives forever, and those who prepared fared much better than those who did not. Which will you be when the next storm strikes? Run from the water, hide from the wind. A common saying when a hurricane approaches, especially if you live right on the coast, on South Padre Island or maybe Port Isabel. The water, the storm surge, it's deadly, destructive, and unforgiving. Here's meteorologist Sergio Puente.
A hurricane doesn't knock. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just arrives uninvited, unstoppable, and it brings the ocean with it.
I snapped photos at South Padre Island and Port Isabel. I asked ChatGPT to show what a 10-foot storm surge would look like in these photos. You can see cars submerged in water, debris floating. The Gulf, it's at our doorstep. When a storm rolls in, that doorstep disappears. The water rises, the winds howl, and suddenly the coast you thought you knew is gone. Storm surge isn't just a wall of water. It's the ocean shoving its way onto land, carried by the breath of the storm itself, and it doesn't care if your house is 5 miles inland. It sweeps through neighborhoods, over streets, through front doors, into living rooms. It traps families, cuts power, and can end lives. This map? It's not just a graphic, it's a warning. A big enough storm approaching at a perfect angle could push the Gulf all the way into Harlingen, San Benito, and even Brownsville. That's not fear, that's physics. Don't wait. Don't assume it'll miss us. Don't let the first bands of rain be your wake-up call. Too late? The storm always moves faster than we think, and once it's here, there's no going back.
We'll be tracking every system from start to finish, but your safety, that begins today. Make your plan, pack your kit, and don't wait for that storm to knock.
You might be noticing a theme developing here, a theme to prepare, so you're ready when the storm comes. We've learned it doesn't take a hurricane to flood homes. We saw it in June of 2018 and 2019, and then again just 2 months ago. It doesn't take a hurricane. In March, more than 20 inches of rain fell in some areas in just a few hours. More than 4,000 Valley homes were listed as damaged by the storm. Floodwaters stuck around for more than a week. Plenty of homes and business owners have insurance, but it's important to start looking at flood insurance.
The vast majority of the policies, whether you have commercial, business type policies or residential, exclude flood damage. Even though you're not in a bad flood zone, you can still be subjected to flood damage.
If floodwaters reach your home, do you know what to do? Channel 5's Sarah Savetta spoke with an expert about how to properly clean your home after a flood.
A home once filled with furniture and memories looks a lot different now. Gutted walls and bare rooms are filled with cleaning supplies and tools.
The floor needs to be disinfected.
Roberto Mesa was among thousands of people in the valley whose home was flooded in March. 2 months later, the memory still brings him to tears.
Recently, your experience in March, what was that like?
Oh, it was. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Take your time. Take your time.
Mesa invited us into his home in South Far. He showed us what he did to prevent mold growth.
I had to be gutted. It was terrible. I mean, there was a stench in here, and it was bad.
He had to throw out a lot of his water-soaked furniture and many belongings.
It's just frustrating. I guess I don't like to talk about it because I get emotional, but it hurts. It sucks. I mean,
Channel 5 News spoke to Hunter West, an expert who specializes in restoration and cleanup efforts after a flood. He shared some tips with us. The first step is getting the water out of your home using tools like this one.
It's more beneficial for the people watching. It's a shop vac. Obviously, it's a regular vacuum, but if you pull the filter and the bag out of it, it'll actually suck up a lot of water. So you get water in your house, you can use the hose and the shop vac to get all that water out too.
West says it's also important to throw away floodwater-soaked items.
So anything that the water touches, we say has to be removed. Drywall, insulation, cabinets, everything will have to be cut out, ripped out.
And lastly, disinfecting a home with the proper chemicals like Simple Green is essential.
It's an antimicrobial. It'll take down anything that you need, and it's an all-purpose cleaner, and it smells pretty good.
But one product you should avoid when cleaning after a flood is bleach.
So if you do deal with mold has a lot of ammonia in it, and then obviously if you mix bleach with mold or ammonia, you can kind of create a mustard gas.
When we continue, we'll meet these guys, the people who fly into hurricanes to give us a better idea of what's heading our way. We'll meet the hurricane hunters as Facing the Fury continues. Plus, preparing great meals even after the power goes out. It's not that hard. Stay with us. Welcome back to Facing the Fury. When a hurricane strikes the valley, we all may be without power, water, even internet. Imagine that for several weeks. Meteorologist Andrew Chung shows us what supplies you should get right now.
Let's start with bottled water, one of the most important items. You'll need 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days. By the way, this is a 3-gallon water bottle.
Bottled water is important, so are batteries. Make sure you have enough for your flashlights.
Non-perishable foods. Think about foods that don't need refrigeration and don't need to be cooked.
Excuse me, Andrew. You'll need this.
Wonderful.
Non-perishable foods can include canned soup and canned fruits and vegetables.
Well, let's see. I've got some important documents like insurance policies, some other papers that I need to protect just in case a hurricane hits.
Andrew, you'll need this.
Thank you. Be sure to store important documents like insurance policies in plastic bags in case they get wet.
For those with babies, don't forget the baby formula, distilled water, and diapers.
If you have pets, don't forget about them either. Make sure they have enough food for at least a week.
Paper plates and plastic utensils are important.
It's easy to get cuts and bruises after a storm hits and after you're cleaning up.
And don't forget this.
Having a first aid kit is essential, just in case.
Bleach can be used to disinfect water, and don't forget the soap.
When a hurricane hits, it could be weeks before you're able to refill your prescription medication. Make sure you have enough medication on hand before the storm hits.
That's it for the grocery store. Now it's time to head to the hardware store. So after the storm hits, the power's probably going to be out. I've got a smartphone that I'll have to charge.
Mr. Andrew, you might need this.
A power bank can be your friend when the power goes out and you have to charge your smartphone. But be sure to charge the power bank before the storm hits. A utility knife is a good thing to have after the storm. Also, a tarp can protect your belongings and property after a hurricane hits. And string and rope can be useful. Let's see, what other things do we need for our hurricanes?
Mr. Andrew, this might come in handy.
So I can't stress this enough. If you use a generator, do not use it indoors. Only use it outdoors. Generators create carbon monoxide fumes that are fatal.
For a full list of supplies, use your phone to scan this QR code. It'll take you straight to our website. So now you have the supplies, the food, the water, but how do you prepare meals for your family when there's no electricity? I spent some time with Hidalgo County Judge Richard Cortez and his staff learning some great recipes and tips on how to be better prepared for the storm.
So today we're going to be making a recipe out of our Power Out cookbook, and we are going to be making our lightning fast chicken tacos. So as hurricane season is upon us, we'd like to have the community start preparing. We never know when a storm is going to hit, so we'd like to make sure that they're prepared to feed their families in case there is a power outage. So these chafing dishes use, and we're going to add in our tomato sauce as well, they use canned heat or sternos. So as you can see here, we have sternos over here to our right.
One of these guys, right? This and this. These guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's canned heat, so you can just put it down there.
Yes, sir.
Even when there's
And
no
so
power.
yes, this canned heat, we go ahead and light it, and it is an alternative fuel that we have in our cookbook. So we have various alternative fuels that we invite the public to take a look at. I'm adding in all our spices, our garlic powder.
These are common spices we all should have at home anyway,
yes,
right?
these should be common household pantry items.
And the good thing about all these ingredients, they're not very expensive and they have a very good shelf life.
We did try to prioritize using non-perishable items that have a long pantry life. That way they are able to be stored and kept in case there is a bad weather day. So we're just gonna go ahead and mix this in. And we're gonna let it simmer for about 2 minutes. Stir it in all really nice.
This whole meal, we said it's going to cost about $20 to do this whole meal, probably, at most.
At most, yeah. We did try to find the low-cost ingredients. We can always find these ingredients at the Dollar Tree or our dollar stores. It is canned chicken, so what we like to do to give it just a little bit more of an authentic chicken flavor, we like to go ahead and rinse it. We like to drain it really well.
How important is preparedness in general as a storm, before a storm approaches?
Well, you know, anything in the future that hasn't happened is uncertain. You don't know how many days you're going to be without power. You don't know how serious the situation is going to be. So the earlier that you're prepared, then the better circumstances and the results are going to be for you and your family.
We're gonna add in our limes.
All right, look at that, Tim.
Looks amazing.
No power, ladies and gentlemen.
Voila.
Beautiful.
Wow. That's so simple, so fast. Smells so good. I know it tastes good too.
And it's so tasty. It really is.
Oh, that's good. That's very good.
It is good.
Can we have seconds?
Sure, we need them all.
Way to go, way to go.
That really is good. I'm impressed. The lightning fast chicken tacos and other great recipes can be found in this free cookbook, Power Out Cooking. We'll post a link to find this cookbook on our website at krgv.com. In fact, you can find all the Facing the Fury stories under our Hurricane Central tab. When we come back, we'll take you inside the hurricane with the Air Force Hurricane Hunters and learn why they do it as Facing the Fury continues. Did you know some people actually fly into hurricanes? They're called hurricane hunters, and they're a big reason why we have a more accurate look at tropical systems. Meteorologist Cecilia Gutierrez has an inside look at how these hunters help us prepare for a potential storm.
Some people just can't pass up a bet. And in 1943, Colonel Joseph Duckworth, an officer in the Air Force, took the bet of a lifetime. That bet exactly? Fly through a hurricane.
That's when basically the U.S. discovered that they can actually fly airplanes through tropical systems.
Colonel Duckworth safely returned to base in Bryan, Texas after successfully flying through the 1943 storm. But as soon as he returned, he was asked by a weather officer to be flown into the same storm. Now, this is known as the first unofficial data retrieval and the stepping stones for the hurricane hunters to be born. Chief Meteorologist for the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Rickert, says, like most good things, the hurricane hunters have evolved.
The type of aircraft that we have is the WC-130J Hercules. We have 10 of those, and those are the airplanes that the Air Force has outfitted us to fly through hurricanes.
The unit gets a request from the National Hurricane Center, and off they go to whatever threat may be looming in the Gulf or open Atlantic.
We collect all the weather information, we direct the crew, and then we make sure that it is good data that we're sending to the Hurricane Center.
That unit is largely responsible for the tropical forecasts you see today when there's a potential storm threat.
We have a drops-on launcher where we can drop the weather instruments that takes the vertical profile from the aircraft down to the surface of the ocean.
This is the same data that you'll see us present to you on our newscast during hurricane season. So the temperature, the humidity, the pressure, the wind speed, and wind direction of the storm.
Because we're providing real data that's going into those models that is ground truth.
So when there's a potential threat to land from a tropical system, the hurricane hunters are there, giving us time to prepare and you time to make that critical stay or go decision.
Earlier that reconnaissance can get into those systems where the models are not resolving it very well. For example, cluster of thunderstorms and an area where there's not even a close circulation yet, we're flying it then.
Just like on land, the stronger the hurricane, the more dangerous it can be.
It's changing very, dynamic throughout the time that we're actually flying the patterns. So, land interactions that make some rougher flights a lot of times too.
The most memorable flights being some of the most devastating hurricanes like Irma and Matthew.
What you're doing is helping the people on the ground, giving them enough, warning, providing the Hurricane Center with their data so they can make forecasts, and then the emergency managers can get them out of harm's way and say, hey, get out of here, go.
So next time you're looking for a hurricane forecast from the National Hurricane Center, and you're wondering, where does this information come from? Should I trust it? Should I prepare now? Just know that information comes from the heart of the storm itself.
You might be wondering, why go into the storm? Why not just use satellites or radar? The data we get from hurricane hunters gives us advanced information about the storm, giving us more time to prepare. Fun fact, satellites can't penetrate the cloud cover, so they're limited on what they can show us. But the hurricane hunters, they dive right in. When we come back, we ask a question everyone should know the answer to. Do you know where you live on a map? In a hurricane, it can mean the difference between a mandatory and voluntary evacuation. We're back in 2 minutes. It's possible, depending on where you live, you'll be asked to evacuate in a hurricane. Planning now and knowing what route you're going to use can save valuable time when a storm's approaching.
We are driving into the 2025 hurricane season. The best advice is to have a plan, know where you live, and lastly, stay informed. When it comes to a plan, now is the best time to create it. If you wait until a hurricane arrives, well, it'll be too late. You should also prepare and let your family know what you'll do in the event of an evacuation. That's why you should always make sure you know where you live.
It's important to know the evacuation routes now ahead of hurricane season.
Local emergency or elected officials will use a zone-based system to order the evacuations. Those who live closest to the coast will be the first to get the order if a storm threatens the valley. Depending on where you live, the route you take to evacuate can change.
Our two primary interstate evacuation routes for the valley are I-2 to the west and I-69C to the north. Early on though, any state highway heading west and inland is fair game.
Ray Pedraza is the TxDOT Public Information Officer for the Valley. He explains if a major hurricane was making landfall, a different approach would be taken.
In an extreme circumstance, we would activate contraflow.
The process of a counterflow involves making all lanes of the highway go one direction to get more people out faster. So instead of 2 lanes going north and 2 lanes going south, all 4 would route north. This would include I-69 East, the same goes for I-69C, and State Highway 100. However, TxDOT would only put this procedure in place if a county judge or mayor puts a mandatory evacuation order in place.
Plan your evacuation route and know where you're going. You also want to communicate that plan with somebody who's not in the path of the storm.
The final advice, however, is to stay informed.
Know that before, during, and after the storm, you can count on Channel 5's First Warn 5 storm tracking team to keep you up to date with all the information you need to keep you and your family safe. The Valley's largest and most experienced team of broadcast meteorologists will be on air, online, and on the KRGV weather app, passing life and property-saving information on to you. And we'll be doing the same in Spanish on Channel 5.2 Noticias RGV. Nobody knows if a storm will strike this year, but we do know that if we live here long enough, we'll all have a hurricane story to tell. We hope you can take some of the information we've given you today to make the ending of your story better for you, for your home, and for your family. Prepare now. On behalf of the entire First Warn 5 storm tracking team, thank you for watching Facing the Fury.